Hi, I'm Tyler.
I'm Lisa.
And I'm Emily.
And we're going to be doing some problems related to cost curves. And keep in mind that our notation might be different than your professor's, so keep that in mind while you're doing your homework.
Alright, so we're going to be working on cost curves today. So what I've written down on this board is different columns for different categories. We have quantity, which is the same thing as output or units. We have fixed costs, variable costs, total costs, which we haven't found yet and we'll be solving for, and marginal costs, also, which we haven't found and we'll be solving for. Fixed costs are the costs that we have to pay no matter how much output we produce. So notice how if we produce 0, 3, 9, or 10, we have to pay the same fixed cost. It's sort of like paying rent. So if we pay rent on a building, we're going to have to pay whatever that amount is, regardless whether or not we put a factory in there or not. If we're renting it, we have to pay for it. So those are all the same. Variable cost is easiest to think about as labor. So how much are we paying per worker? That's a variable cost because it changes depending on how many units of output we're making, because it changes depending on how many laborers we have to have. All right, and total cost is best understood as total fixed cost plus total variable cost equals total cost. And it's just the sum of fixed and variable at a certain quantity. So total cost at 0 is 100, and you can note that this is equal to our fixed cost. So if you have a quantity of 0 and they didn't give you any of these, but you knew your total cost, you'd be able to figure out fixed because you know that at 0, the only cost we're making, or the only cost that we have to pay for, is that rent of the building. So when we have an output of 1, then we're adding our total fixed and our total variable together. 100 plus 20, 120. At 2, 138. At an output of 3, 151. And continuing down. So, as we would conceptually just guess, as our quantity is going up, our total cost is going up, because as we're making more, we have to pay more. Alright, so once we've computed our total cost, we're now going to move on to marginal cost. Now, marginal cost is the change in cost as we increase output, so the change in cost over change in output. So as we move from 100 to 120, our cost increases by 20, and we increased our goods by 1. So we're going to go ahead and put a 20 here. Now, two things are important to note. One is that at a quantity of 0, we don't have a marginal cost, because before there was no production. We weren't paying fixed costs, nothing was happening. So we can just put a dash right here. Also important to note is that our marginal cost at a quantity is going to be the same as the increase of our variable costs. And that's because our fixed costs are never changing. And because marginal is this idea of change in cost, the only part of total cost that's changing is this variable, which is why we call it variable cost. So, moving right along, the marginal cost from quantity 1 to quantity 2, from 120 to 138, or 20 to 38, is 18. From 138 to 151, or 38 to 51, we have 13. So we're looking at these differences. So I'm going to do 162 minus 151 to get 11. And you continue that same subtraction method throughout the entire thing. So I'm just going to write down the rest of the values. And something that's important to note here, although we're going to explain it a little bit more, is that while total cost was increasing the entire time because we keep adding more quantity and have to keep paying per quantity, marginal cost, it goes down and then it goes back up. So we start at 20, we keep incrementing down to 11, and then we increment all the way back up to 38. So this is going to account for the shape of our marginal cost curve, which again, we'll describe later in the video. And that's it for total cost and marginal cost.